Mr. Steinman, let's talk medium-term outlook in regards to fuel prices.
I just wanted to ask you a medium-term outlook of what? Because on certain economic aspects, we can sit here for a week.
Yeah, we can.
I'll keep you busy on medium-term outlook. Now, I just want to recap the previous part of our conversation, that people understand this dynamic mechanism. If the cost of fuel at the refinery is less, in other words, slightly cheaper than the contribution from the sale of fuels, that percentage from the fuel price that goes to the equalization fund, there's a surplus.
Yeah.
The kickback goes to the motorist, the owner of the car.
Oh, yeah.
If the cost for fuel at the refinery is higher, in other words, more expensive, then the contribution to the equalization fund from the sale of fuels, then there's a deficit, and the price has to be increased, which has been happening on and off almost for a year now. See, so that is very important, because that brings us immediately to the prospects for the medium term, and you can now sort of gather from what I've talked about here, this volatility. If you think it's bad on our pockets, can you imagine you, the manager of a refinery that produces, let's say, 200, 300 million liters of fuel a day? They are huge. You can't switch it off.
Yeah.
You can't go home. You can't shut it down. You have to keep processing. You have to keep the whole production and marketing channel active. It's very important. And keep in mind, I've just said you don't control that price.
Yeah.
You sort of over the thumb, taking the best guess what conditions will be like in 3 months from now. So now you can see why they've got endless modeling 2 months in advance, modeling 3 months in advance when they actually have to take delivery. Remember, they've paid now, but they will only get delivery in 3 months. But in the meantime, the whole system has to keep on running. So it is a major occupation of the crude industry that they have these models on various time frames, and so they take an outlook not only on the 3 months for when they take delivery, but also on 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years, 10 years. Now you can imagine in economics, or that part of economics where we rely on statistics, we talk about the robustness of a model. And what it actually means in ordinary language is the reliability. Now you can figure it out for yourself that 3 months from now the robustness is nearly 100%, because you know what you've paid today and you know what you're going to get in 3 months from now. The moment you jump one sequence to 6 months, it becomes murky. It is not so cast in stone anymore. It is not so predictable. So the robustness of the model comes down. It reduces. But this is normal, Any modeling, it's like a company's budget. A company's budget, I still have to meet the management of whatever company in the world that can stay on budget. You either above or you below. So the budget is just like a guideline. It's a benchmark. And the same thing with these models. The modeling focuses on what they expect conditions to be 6 months, year, 2 years from now. That's more or less medium term. But if you look at what's happened between Russia and Ukraine, and you look at what's happening with oil production in major countries like Angola and Nigeria and Venezuela, you realize from the daily news that is equally unpredictable. But I think the going expectation at this moment is that the price of crude will gradually recede. Why do I say that? First of all, if the war between Russia and Ukraine is settled and there is some form of armistice between them, end of the hostilities, then within a relatively short time frame, the oil from the Russian producers will again become available in Western Europe. That will have a major impact on world oil prices.
Definitely.
The other thing is, if you look at OPEC quotas, you will see from their latest meeting that it is the intention of a number of big producers to increase their output. In other words, extracting more oil than what's currently needed. Both these indicate to a slow, very gradual reduction in oil price.
Okay.
Remember, we were close to $100 per barrel 2 years ago when the prices started going up. The target that the oil industry wants crude to be is around $60 per barrel. We're not very far from that. We are now at 63 for WTI, West Texas Intermediate, and I'm under correction, I think about 65 or 66 for North Sea oil. So the moment that we get to 60, the industry will try and maintain a modicum of stability around that $60 per barrel mark.
And that means that we also need to say goodbye. But of course, this conversation never ends. Like we will be back next week, guys. So do not worry about that. Might be a new conversation, might be the same topic that we're discussing today, that is fuel prices. But unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to you. Thank you so much for keeping it locked. And like I said earlier, do not forget, you can go to economist.com.na. From me, I'll be Timiani, and from Mr. Daniel Steinman and the team, we say goodbye.